Hello everyone, welcome to our very first YouTube video. In this video, we're going to be doing a Sims 4 speed build. This whole build is all based on Cyberpunk, which we've been playing a ton lately, and I really love the aesthetic, so I decided to try and make something in The Sims. I've been playing The Sims for a really long time, and every time I do a build, I always start with just the outside first and then move in. I don't know why. Sometimes it messes me up and sometimes it works out great. In this case, I think it worked out really well. My inspiration was a lot of V's apartment and kind of the grungy side of Night City. So this video in particular, part 1, is going to show the left building and V's apartment, which isn't exactly V's apartment, but I took a lot of inspiration from that. So you can see in that. And then part 2 will be the rest of the build, which includes the Ripper Dock and the building on the right. But here you can see I'm just starting with the outside and building up everything that I want, adding the roof, and I definitely wanted part of the roof to be playable so you can walk up there and have a little seating area. Very industrial, and later you can see it's going to be kind of run down. I'm going to put trash everywhere, make it look really grungy like some parts of Night City do. I really loved those industrial looking awnings. They look kind of rusted but also colorful, and I use those a lot throughout, and I think they make the build look really put together but also runs with the Night City theme. And I had a really hard time picking windows for this build. I don't think a lot of the windows in The Sims matched what I was going for, but in the end I think it works out okay. There really aren't that many windows at all. And I add the Batu windows from the Star Wars pack. I think those here look great with this build. Very industrial and kind of funky, so it works out well. And I really just, the building on the left is the one I was focusing on most, and it's the one I had in my head. And the building on the right was kind of an afterthought just because I really wanted there to be an alleyway. So I focus a lot more on the building on the left in this build, and then I kind of try and piece together what I want for the other building. And I think the details on the roof are really interesting, and I didn't really use many of these things before this build in The Sims. Usually I do kind of Victorian build themes, very fancy, and so this is kind of out of my comfort zone, using modern and industrial materials, which is not typically what I used in my builds. But it was really fun to experiment with all of these new items and make something completely out of my wheelhouse. And the colors of the buildings, I really wanted it to look like a gray city, really run down, but I wanted the buildings to be differentiated, so I used 2 different colors. Just trying to add a lot of detail to the outside of the building and make it look interesting and fun. I like all of the awnings that they have available. And like I said earlier, I really wanted there to be a way to access the rooftop, but I had a hard time putting the ladders. So I found out the easiest way to do this was make a room and put it on that way and then remove the walls. I'm not sure if there's a better way to do this, but this one ended up working for me in the end. And it looks pretty good, in my opinion. It got me to the point I wanted to be at, so that's all that matters. And here we are just looking for a lot of neon. I want to neon it up, neon everywhere. And I think that this makes the build look perfect. In the end, all of the neon makes it very Night City. So I go around and I add a lot of different colorful and glowing things. And here I'm adding some decorations to try and make it look like a real street. I add a car in later, which makes it look pretty cool. These neon lights here I used throughout the entire build. I loved them. I think they made it for me. They made the build great, and I changed the color with the live mode. And I want lots of different colors. I like the pinks and blues and purples and oranges that kind of make Night City pop. So I use a lot of that throughout. And here you can see me changing those again, because I don't want it to all just be glowing one color. I want it to be very different and varied. I think this build looks best at night, so when I do a lot of my editing, I do it at night just to make sure it looks the way I want it to look. And again, tons of lights. Night City is all ads and lights, and I try to make that the case here as well. But I had a lot of fun doing this build. It was definitely something out of my comfort zone, and because I've been playing Cyberpunk so much, it was really fun to kind of get in this mindset and do something in homage to Cyberpunk. Here you can see I'm changing more lights. This is a very common theme in this build, is just lights everywhere and making them super colorful. Going around. I mostly stuck with just blue and that magenta and orange color. I didn't try to do the whole gamut of the rainbow or anything. Now I'm just going to finish up placing all of the lights on the outside and changing the colors of them, sticking mostly with that orange and magenta and blue, and I think it really makes the outside pop. So here I'm just adding some detail to the roof, making the patios look the way I want them. I just used black. I thought that the black looked best. The black tin roof. Just going around and fixing some of the colors, adding some more detail. And then in the back I had a hard time deciding what I wanted to do with the rest of the space because there was so much. So I decided to just put in a little parking lot area. It really doesn't do anything because the cars are just sized up toys, and just deciding to add some detail to make it look nice. It's not really functional beyond just being space. So I added a couple cars back here, and I found this run-down, broken, rusted piece of a car that I thought looked amazing and perfect for this build in the debug options. So I put that over there like it was broken and just sitting there. There's a lot of that in Cyberpunk. I added a bus stop and a billboard, so hopefully it looks done up. I want it to have a lot of detail and stuff back there, even though there's not much to do. I also added a ton of trash around. A dumpster, a trash can, a bunch of trash, and here I'm just adding a bunch of decorations. That fridge I thought was perfect for this build because if you've played Cyberpunk, there's a ton of fridges that you can open that have secrets inside, and I thought that was super fitting. And here I'm just adding more and more trash all over the place. So this build is very gross. But I think it works. I think it looks like Cyberpunk. I definitely wanted a mattress in the alleyway too, because there's sometimes people that are sleeping in alleys in Cyberpunk, but I couldn't find a bed that I liked, so I just used that rundown mattress decoration. And I end up moving all of this stuff around a little later, adding an awning over the bed so that the person doesn't get rained on. And just back to more decorations, adding a few benches like it's on a city. And obviously I always keep looking at the build at night just to see how it looks, because I think the neon lights again are really what make this build amazing. And now I'm kind of working on the roof a little bit, trying to figure out how to make this space usable. I didn't want to add too much up here, but just a spot where your sim can go and have an outdoor space. And there's a lot of rooftops in Cyberpunk that you can hang out on. And here's where I change a couple things up on the roof as well. I take out that window here and add in a vent instead, and I think that just looks a lot nicer. The window didn't really fit in my opinion. And finally, here I am coming inside and making the inside. So as you can see, my process in Sims builds is a lot of outside and then moving inside, which again can sometimes get me in trouble if the inside doesn't work at all. But in this build, I really didn't have to do much changes. I don't think I did any outside changes to the build to make the inside work. So I kind of just start with the layout of the inside and then work on decorating. This is V's apartment, or anyone's apartment in Cyberpunk. It doesn't have to be V, but it was based off of V a little bit. Yeah, so I'm going to be working on the inside a bit now, focusing on this left building in this build. I moved to the right building later. So now I'm just trying to add in doorways and kind of map out the space a little bit. I wanted the bed to look really built in this build, kind of like it does in the game. I changed this around a lot. I had a little trouble getting it to be what I wanted and not a clear vision, but the way it ends up I think works really well. So I add the bed and then I add some cabinets up top to make it look like a built-in. I was going to use a half wall, but I decided against it. I'm just trying to play around with what I think might work best, and I end up using a bar to make the bed look built in to the space. And what I do is you remove the floor and then play around with the spacing and size of the bar, and I use 2 of them and then re-add the floor to make the bed look built in. And here I go in and I add this little flat surface, I don't know what it's called, to make it even look more built in, so there's not any space around the bed. And as you can see, I test it and make sure it works. And there you go, she's in it. It works great. Then we'll move her away and continue. So I really like the way that the bed turned out in this one. I think it looks cool. And I definitely wanted there to be more lights. And I started off with 3, but then it turned out to be way too much, so that's like way too bright, too pink. So I ended up with just 1, and I love the glow, the pink glow of this room. I think it's super neat. And I just add a bunch of decorations around. I wanted them to look very spacey and technology themed, which is kind of what I go for throughout this entire build. The living room layout gave me a lot of trouble. I had no clue where I wanted to start or how I wanted it to be, so I just play around with different pieces of furniture, see what kind of looks best, and then finally it comes together. I really like this couch. It's super simple, and I think it looks really neat. So I finally land on putting the TV there, and I think it looks great in the end. I add some half walls in a second that really break up the space, just making sure the colors are right. This build is the furniture in it is very monochrome, white, tan, and then the lights are what give it a lot of oomph, I think. I play around a lot with the lights in this one. I change a few things up in the end. So the living room looks pretty good. Trying to add some decorations. I really love that poster. I use it a couple times throughout the build, different colors. And here I've discovered there's some graffiti in the decorations menu, which I love, and I went and just added a bunch around the outside because I didn't realize it was there before. Because like I said, this is really the first time I've used a lot of this furniture and decorations. I don't do much graffiti in my typical Victorian builds. So it was a really fun experience learning all of these different options that I didn't even know were there. And as I find things that look good and I think can work in other places, I just put them there just as a keepsake so I can move it around later. Now I'm working on the desk area, because when you first walk into V's apartment in Cyberpunk, there's a little computer and desk station to your left, and I wanted the same thing here. So again, I used shelves and cabinets to make it look more built in. Just playing around with different decorations that I see. I was thinking, and here you can see I'm deleting that light that I talked about. I couldn't really figure out where to put all the lights and exactly what kind of lighting I wanted. Here's where I'm adding in the closet. I played around with the layout of this a bit and decided to go with some shelves. Make it look like a built-in again. Obviously using more lights and changing the colors, making it very neon. Here we go. Here's I'm adding some shelves. And I add some boots down below to make it really look put together. In V's apartment in Cyberpunk, there's that whole room with the storage of you can store guns and clothes, but in this case I built a kitchen because V's gotta eat. Gotta eat. I also added a vending machine though. There's vending machines all over, and I didn't know vending machines were in Sims. So I was pretty excited to find that and add it in. It's a pretty small kitchen, but I think it's really usable, and I think it looks pretty cool in the end. Here I'm just deciding where to lay them out and changing the color to match everything. It's, again, a pretty dingy apartment. There's not too many amenities. The kitchen's small, but there's space to do everything you need. And I actually remembered a trash can, which I never do, so I'm pretty pleased with myself here. Even though I think I did forget to add a mailbox, now that I think about it, to the whole building. Which technically, I think this building is considered residential. In my opinion, you could make it anything. But there are 2 apartments where someone could live. I finally found a reason to use those egg chairs too, which are my favorite, and I never use in any builds because it just doesn't match my typical style, but it works so well here. And again, just playing with the color and then hiding the light. I just kind of want the glow without seeing the light. And finally, the last part of this apartment is the bathroom. And I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. I really tried to style it like the one in Cyberpunk. Obviously it's a little different, but I think it works out really well. Adding some decorations around to make it look pretty. The floor is concrete, the walls are gray, it's pretty bland and bleak, like a lot of Cyberpunk's buildings are. Here I was trying to figure out something to do with that wall, and this does not work, so I end up scrapping that. I don't like those cupboards there. The toilet. And I add those 3 candles, which they have in Cyberpunk, the 3 seashells in the bathroom, so I thought that was a really fun call out. So here I'm just adding stuff to make it look nice. I thought a curtain might work really well as like a little barrier to this room so that you can like close the curtain and have some privacy. And there's where I take away the cabinets and add just the curtain instead. Just putting some finishing touches on decorations and making sure everything looks good. I found out that this was clipping through the wall a little bit on the outside, so I decided to redo it, and I had to remove the floor and move everything around to make it work, but I got there. Here I'm trying to add some of those industrial looking wall hanging things that they added. I added a vent and moved a couple things around to make these pipes look really nice in the kitchen. I thought that was a really nice touch. I really love these industrial pipes. I think they fit really well. Adding something to the outside. I think this apartment ended up looking super cool. I'm really happy with how it turned out. and it's all usable. Adding a little rug here, make it look all homey and nice. So now that I'm adding some of the finishing touches to this apartment, ending with the bathroom, I'm going to add some screenshots of the finished product, well, the half-finished product of part 1, which will be the outside of this build so far, as well as the inside of this first apartment. So check it out and see how it turned out.